Good evening from my star in the galaxy, and good afternoon from my guest star in the galaxy. My name is Dr. Tovah Goldfine. Welcome to TMS Roundtable Recovery, where we stream live weekly, meeting professors and doctors and movie directors and authors. We have lively discussions, interactive Q&A, just inspiring and educating, and that's really what it's about. But the most important thing that happens here is we meet people that are on their healing journey. We talk about people on their healing journey. We support people in the recovery, everything from cancer to arthritis to MS to all types of chronic pain and neuroplastic symptoms, because we're here to educate really anyone and everyone about the science and the art of healing. So tonight, Agnes was supposed to be our guest, and I don't think she can make it. There was a little bit of a family emergency, but we will talk about her situation and how she utilized Dr. David Hanscom's work to help her in a way and help her recover with quite an amazing story. So Agnes was diagnosed with scoliosis at age 16. Now, Dr. Hanscom, who's my guest, is a spinal deformity surgeon. Scoliosis was his specialty. She underwent spinal fusion surgery with a Harrington rod. Years later, she had a car accident, and it brought all the pain back with a vengeance. Severe back pain, neuropathy, arthritis, herniated disc, anxiety, and crushing fatigue. She couldn't hold her toddler, and that she was lying down, and everything was pointing towards her getting new surgery from neck to the pelvis. She couldn't believe it was the only way out. Bedridden and sleep deprived, she found a book that changed her life, and she didn't get the second surgery. That book was her gateway back to the mind-body work and eventually to pain reprocessing therapy, where everything shifted. So that book was Dr. Hanscom's book. Today, she is free from chronic pain, fatigue, and anxiety, and on a mission as a coach to help others whenever possible. And so that book, again, was written by our guest tonight, Dr. David Hanscom. And we will talk about that book, Back in Control, and his second book, which, do you have a copy of that? We'll show in a minute.
Do you really need spine surgery?
No, the other book. That's just second book, your third book, your new book.
Oh, Calm Your Mind, Heal Your Body.
Calm Your Mind, Heal Your Body.
Somewhere in my house, but I can't find it.
Okay, well, anyway. Maybe I'll have Brian put up a copy of it. It's also a beautiful book, a beautiful cover. So Dr. David Hanscom, a former complex orthopedic spine surgeon who practiced for 32 years before leaving his Seattle practice to share what he learned from his own 15-year struggle with chronic mental and physical pain. His insight, anxiety is the pain. He's the author of Back in Control, A Surgeon's Roadmap Out of Chronic Pain, and the founder of the Dynamic Healing Movement, which addresses how stress and nervous system threat physiology drive chronic symptoms, with your colleague, Dr. Les Aria, who's going to be on the show in a few weeks. This book that started Agnes's recovery, the surgeon who wrote it, is with us tonight in the studio live, and I couldn't be happier. So I'm going to ask, since we're out here with Agnes and it's just you and I rubbing shoulders, and maybe Agnes can join us halfway through the show. We'll definitely meet with her again. But let's just really bring to the listeners the facts, the science and the art. No black and white, shades of gray. Let's talk about and chime in about your situation, because that's what keeps you going. It's this I believe this appreciation and gratefulness and love for the innate intelligence that took you from 15 symptoms. I keep saying you couldn't cross a bridge without a panic attack, remember?
Right.
Those days. So chime in about you as well, but let's talk about back pain, disc herniation, scoliosis, spinal stenosis, these conditions that still many surgeons, doctors, and we're not going to bash doctors tonight. I know sometimes you like to do that, but people are getting lots of surgery, not getting better, or they're not sure about getting surgery. So let's chat about surgery, what people should do, and how people should heal from the source. Whether they're getting surgery or not, this is where they have to bring the real healing. So I'm going to sit back and listen and have a little dialogue with you to talk about these little topics.
Okay.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. I always enjoy our conversations. It's a lot of fun, but also, you know so much about this, why it's really pretty easy to talk to you about these concepts. But I'm a spine surgeon. I was trained in pediatric spinal deformity. I hit Seattle in 1985, and Seattle at that point in time had 9 times the rate of spine surgery per person for back fusions as any place else in the country. My partner was one of those surgeons who was on fire doing all sorts of fusions. So was I. I was one of those surgeons who just felt guilty, but didn't find a reason to do somebody's back surgery. Well, I had no idea that the research showed that there's no connection between disc degeneration, herniated disc, arthritis, bone spurs, and scoliosis with back pain at all. 0. So the research clearly shows if you take 100 people off the street that have never had back pain, about depends what age it is. At 60 years old, 100% of people have degenerated disc. So what's happening in medicine, which I don't understand and why I quit my practice, is that for some reason we got to in our minds that the degenerated disc is a source of pain. It's just a disc that's lost water content. It's a new diagnosis based on MRI scans because MRI scans show water content of the disc. When the disc is dark, it means less water, which actually means the disc is stiffer and actually less likely to cause pain. So again,
Interesting point.
bone on bone, your spine is stable, it's fused to cell. If you have disc degeneration and narrowing, it's again stable, not a source of pain. And the back pain that occurs from the disc is between age 30 to 50, where the discs are basically normal, and the ring around the outside called the annulus gets a little annular tear, reactive muscle spasm, and a lot of pain. But that's temporary. So I was shocked to find out there's a paper out of Israel, by the way, by a gentleman by the name of Agmon, Agmon, very major 4-year prospective study on back pain and sleep. It turns out that lack of sleep actually causes chronic low back pain, causes it.
As opposed to the opposite, which we think.
They did not find the opposite causation because I always thought that chronic pain caused lack of sleep is actually the other way around. There's actually a higher chance so they also shown that your back pain doubles if you miss 1 night of sleep. They also show there's a higher chance of actually becoming disabled with lack of sleep than there actually is with sciatica, which, as you know, is quite intense. So that's what caught my attention. And so how my process evolved was I had 17 different physical and mental symptoms, and I was miserable for over 15 years, and I did not know how I got into the problem. I wasn't sure how I came out of it. But the bottom line is that I've been out of chronic pain for 20 years now. I've learned a process that you sequentially can calm and reroute the nervous system. Pain disappears. So going back to back pain, I wrote a book called Do You Really Need Spine Surgery? It breaks the decision into 2 variables and 4 choices. So the first question to ask with any surgery in any part of the body is the problem structural or is it not structural? And when I say structural, if you have a pinched nerve, and the symptoms match, that's a structural problem. If you do a small operation and unpinch the nerve, why the pain goes away. So that's a structural problem that responds well to surgery. The metaphor I like to use is that, or comparisons that of going to the dentist with an infected tooth or a cavity that hurts. If you identify the tooth and pull the tooth or repair the cavity, the tooth heals and people's pain goes away. But what if you go to the dentist with mouth pain and you don't know where the pain's coming from and start pulling teeth and doing procedures and you have no idea where the pain's coming from? That doesn't work. So structure means you can see the problem. Back pain is never a structural problem. It's non-specific. It's got a wide range of things that can hurt. The tendons, ligaments, disc, and muscles can hurt. You don't know which one they are. So if we start doing procedures at random, say, well, this disc is the problem, the success rate of doing a back surgery for back pain is about 20 to 25%. The chance of making you worse is 40 to 60%. You have double the chance of making you worse for back pain surgery than making you better. So again, we're operating on normally degenerating, aging spines. The spine is more stable, less movement, less pain. In fact, there's a 1953 paper that showed after a disc operation that the narrower the disc space, the less chance of chronic back pain. So
Such a paradox.
people say I have bone on bone. I go, so there's no correlation with pain, but yet I don't know understand why spine surgery in general has just ignored the data. The data said that a spine fusion for back pain simply doesn't work. So what's even worse right now, somehow as pediatric spinal deformity trained, there's very clear indication for doing surgery in kids. If you have a curve that's over 45 degrees, the kid's skeletally immature, the curve will progress. You have to do surgery. There's no choice. That's just simply a curve. Now, most of those kids don't have back pain. So somehow, remember, we don't know where back pain comes from exactly. We can discuss that in a second. After 6 to 12 months, all pain in any part of the body becomes memorized. So you start doing structural issues for memorized pain. That doesn't work. So what's happened in adult scoliosis surgery is that we've taken the pediatric criteria, which is simply magnitude of the curve. Pain, by the way, is not an indication to do surgery in any age group, including pediatrics.
It's so interesting
So the
to
pediatric
hear
scoliosis surgery
you
is
say that.
very well defined because you have a curve is 20 degrees, no surgery, 45 degrees in a skeletally mature person, no surgery. If you have a 40 to 50 degree curve in a kid who's skeletally immature, it can progress dramatically. So you stabilize it before it progresses. So with adults, the curves don't progress. Once you hit menopause or skeletal maturity in males, the chance of the curve progressing is very, very low. So you might have a 45-degree curve at age 20. By the time you're age 60, it might be 50 degrees. So once you hit adulthood and stabilize the curve, they are just simply a finding. They're not a source of pain. There's been no research paper that shows that scoliosis is a source of pain. Now, there's another deformity called kyphosis, which is basically a hunchback deformity. Again, no correlation with pain, except if the entire spine is tilted forward more than about 10 centimeters, then people have aching pain in their lower back, and sometimes we'll do surgery to straighten up the entire spine. The problem is that in kids, scoliosis clearly doesn't cause pain because they just don't have pain as a kid with scoliosis. So in adulthood, you've got scoliosis, all of a sudden it's, quote, a source of pain. What happens instead of doing 1 and 2 level fusions that don't work, they're doing 10, 12, 14 level fusions that don't work.
I want to stop you right here, and forgive me for interrupting. I just want to, you know, it's so profound when you talk about this. And as a chiropractor for 41 years, and I'm hearing it like I hear it for the first time because it's always so profound hearing it from you with your experience. Can I ask, if those things don't cause pain, then can we just answer this question right here? Is where is the pain coming from?
Well, the problem is under chronic stress, your body goes into fight or flight, and sustained stress breaks the body down. But one thing that happens is that your nerve conduction doubles. Your brain itself has inflammatory cells. Your brain literally starts short circuiting. You've changed the pain threshold. The tissues themselves become inflamed. The nerves are doubled. The brain itself is inflamed. So you have pain in areas that you never normally would have pain. But it can be any part of the body. People get burning mouth syndrome. They get burning feet. They get ringing in their ears. So when your body's in fight or flight, your whole body's on fire. We also have what's called inflammatory cytokines, which encompass every tissue or every cell in the body. So again, that increases pain. Your metabolism goes up. You're taking fuel out of the cells, not putting it back in, and the body breaks down. So the essence of chronic pain in any part of the body is sustained stress. And people think stress is psychological. It's not. It's just stress means danger. It's your response to the stress that's the problem, not the stress itself.
So important. Quote, it's your response to the stress, not the stress itself, unquote.
So we can go down this alley a little bit farther. So people somehow think that life is a gift. No, it's not. Gifts don't get taken away in a heartbeat. So life is unpredictable, as we all well know. And so every living creature has to survive by facing challenges, finding shelter, finding food, warding off predators. That's life. So basically, staying alive involves processing stress and adversity. So we all have it. People somehow don't want to suffer at all. And the problem is that Stress is stress. Adversity is adversity. It's never going to be pleasant. I'm not into positive thinking at all, but you lean into what you have to deal with on a given day. Your body reacts, you go into fight or flight, and then you let it go. But it's when you hold on and get angry about having the stress in the first place, that's the problem. Okay, poor me, I just got fired. Poor me, my mother treated me badly. Poor me, somebody just insulted me. You weren't physically hurt, but it's your reaction to that, quote, perceived insult or perceived threat that's a problem. So it's bad enough to lose your job. You're not going to be happy. But then how do you solve the problem? So when you're angry and frustrated, let's just stop for a second. So anxiety, as you know from talking to me multiple times, is simply the sensation generated by your body when you're in fight or flight. That's it.
It's protective.
It's a description danger signal. And so it's not psychological. And the reason why it's so critical to understand is that this automatic survival response processes about 1 billion bits of information per second. The conscious brain processes 20 to 40. That's it. So you have this massive survival machine that's a beautiful thing to behold. It's protecting you, and your conscious brain is just the smallest fraction of that. So mind over matter doesn't work because your body's protecting you. So the sensation generated by this massive fight or flight response is called anxiety. It's supposed to be so unpleasant that it forces you to take action. The species of creatures who did not pay attention just didn't survive. So then if you're trapped and can't solve the problem causing the anxiety, you become angry. So anger is also a survival signal. It's not psychological. So you have this massive amount of stress physiology that just starts tearing your body down, tearing your body down, tearing your body down. And the tipping point for every person I've seen heal, every person, no exception, is how you process anger. So adversity is inevitable. And I say, look at life as an adventure. There's good days and bad days. None of us are guaranteed life, period. It's not a gift. It can be taken away in a heartbeat. Life is an adventure at best. And so if you have a bad day, you have a bad day. It's staying angry over the bad day. That's what breaks your bodies down. I know we went way off track on that one.
That's a beautiful point. It's exactly on track. So let's move into and help the listeners with, because I love your articles in Psychology Today about, anxiety is the protector. It's your bodyguard.
Right. It's a signal. Right.
And let's move a little bit into threat safety physiology so people can take this information and come out of their head and into their body and apply and implement it.
So, but I like to go back to the whole scoliosis about the whole idea. I wrote this book, Do You Really Need Spine Surgery? There's two variables. One of them is a problem structural or not? In other words, can you see the problem that has matching symptoms? Or is it non-structural where there's pain but no obvious source? So then that's one variable. Is it structural or not? What's the nature of the lesion? The other variable is the state of your nervous system. So if your nervous system's calm, you have a structural lesion like a ruptured disc and pinched nerve, you do operation, the results are almost 100%. If you have a structural ruptured disc in presence of a fired up nervous system, the results are still reasonable, but they're unpredictable. Where spine surgery has gone way off base is that if you have back pain, which is just nonspecific pain, you have degenerated discs, which have been proven not to be the source of pain, you don't know where the pain's coming from, that is non-structural. The only time back pain is structural if you have a tumor, infection, or a broken bone. That's it. And those are pretty rare. And again, disc degeneration and scoliosis are not sources of pain. So if you have somebody with back pain and their nervous system's calmed down, I'll ask you the question, how much pain would you have for how long before you underwent a spine fusion for back pain? You personally.
Well, ask the question again.
What would it take for you to undergo spine surgery for back pain?
Well, it depends on my tolerance, my ability. If I don't know about the nervous system, I would say more pain means something's wrong. But if I know about the nervous system, it's my relationship with the pain.
Right. Except what I'm asking you though, so you have back pain and you're a calm person, I think. You seem pretty calm. You're going to put up with pain for a long time before you undergo back surgery, right? Okay. So we call that, so you have a structural problem, calm nervous system. You just don't do surgery. You don't even want the surgery. The group that's getting the most surgery by far is the people that has non-specific back pain. You can't find the cause. It's like going to the dentist, not knowing where the problem's coming from. And you have a stressed nervous system. Because you have stresses in life in general, fire up the nervous system. So you start creating pain out of nowhere. Then you have the additional stress of back pain, which fires up the nervous system even more. Or maybe you've had a failed surgery, which means you're really angry with the surgeon who promised you hope. Again, another problem. And we have all sorts of reasons, or a lot of, I can't tell you the number of people that hold on to the fact that their mother or father or both treated them badly when they were kids. That's 40 years ago. But see, what happens if you want to hold on to that, stay angry about it, it might as well have happened yesterday.
Good point.
Your nervous system stays fired up, your nerve conduction is doubled, your brain's on fire, and so you have nonspecific back pain, you're angry about all sorts of stuff, and legitimately angry. Being in pain is a legitimate reason to be angry. Having your parents abuse you, legitimate reason to be angry. There's lots of things to be angry about in life, except the more legitimate their anger, the harder it is to let go, and the more damaging it is to your body. So sustained stress, i.e. fight or flight, breaks down your body. It breaks it down. And then you get structural problems because, like, for instance, take autoimmune disorders. Where do those come from? Well, your immune system's attacking your own body. You're creating structural problems. Same thing with osteoporosis. Your body's inflammation, fight or flight, is chewing up bone cells. Same thing with osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, all these different cancer, dementia, heart disease, Parkinson's are all metabolic inflammatory disorder where you're taking fuel from your body, breaking your body down. So sustained fight or flight or threat physiology breaks down your body. And what's miraculous, and my story included, is that you learn to let your stress physiology do its job. The key is you quit reacting to it. In other words, you quit getting so upset that you have adversity. So it doesn't matter, I'm not into positive thinking. Adversity is adversity. You don't have to be happy about it. But if you get angry at the fact that, poor me, I have stress, I have adversity, I have troubles, that's what takes you down big time.
Yeah. Well, being the victim, and again, we can chat about, the biggest anger is people are angry at themselves, and this is the cycle. This is the maze, the cycle. This will never, this will never get them. And so we move into safety, love, compassion. And this is like, again, I like talking about the chemical reaction of gratitude and the chemical reaction of calm. And so maybe we can chat about, again, I use it all the time. I borrowed it from you because everything's repetitive intelligence, but the safety threat physiology is a profound way to help people understand what's happening.
Right. So we call the model dynamic healing, is that you learn how to induce state physiology, your body heals. That's it. It's
But people
not
get, but
very
people are getting in the way, people are getting in the way of themselves. And let's talk about the ego for a minute, and people getting in the way because we can't help people when they're in the way.
right. Well, so first of all, I've also learned that I can't help anybody, period. I mean, I can't. I used to try. I used to feel it was my responsibility to heal everybody that came my way. I can't heal anybody. So what I learned is the body does heal itself, and you're exactly right by saying that we get in our own way of healing. And the reason why I call it dynamic, because this changes every day, every minute. I mean, some days are bad days. You're going to be in fight or flight. Control that. Some days are great no matter what. So again, your body's in safety physiology. But it's that ratio of safety physiology compared to threat that allows the body to heal. There's always going to be threat physiology because your body has to stay alive. It's always on some degree of alert. Like in the animal kingdom, for instance, whales and dolphins sleep with one eye open.
Love this.
Giraffes sleep standing up. Rabbits burrow into holes. I mean, you have to stay on alert to stay alive. So, and we can talk, I know we've talked about this before. I don't remember exactly what we covered, but humans have a major problem. This is a huge topic. And this is my new book called Calm Your Body, Heal Your Mind. Is that probably the biggest factor that causes humans to be so reactive and ill are their thoughts. And we're unique. We are a very reactive, angry species compared to most other animals in the animal kingdom,
Yeah.
right?
So important.
So when I say, so I had a little saying that came into my head one day from reactive to creative, that when you're reacting to something, if you're anxious or frustrated, that just means something today reminded you of something in the past that was perceived as dangerous. May not have been dangerous, but your body says this is danger. Your body memorizes everything, by the way. That's how we all survive. We memorize everything unconsciously. There's no piece of data that goes into my brain today, right now, that I haven't memorized to take action to stay safe. So anytime you're anxious, again, survival reaction, or frustrated, you're in the past. You're not even here, right? But the other problem is you're anxious and frustrated. The blood supply to your thinking brain, the neocortex up here, drops down dramatically. So you actually cannot physiologically think correctly. Can't do it.
So being frustrated and anxious, you taught me that the brain also creates an inflammatory reaction to that. But also what you said is less blood and oxygen are circulating. Say that again,
Correct. That's
please.
absolutely right. You cannot think really because, I mean, in fight or flight. So the reason why it's such a problem for humans, because obviously when you're in fight or flight, you're not going to be thinking about philosophy or mathematics. You just want to survive. The problem with humans is that 20 to 25% of our entire body's energy is used to run our brain. We have this huge furnace in our brains. And so when the blood supply in humans gets dropped down, we have an inordinate amount of energy running in the thinking part of our brain. There's like a big sucking sound out of that, and we can't think clearly. That's why throughout the history of the world, people in authority and dictators have always created chaos. Because in chaos, you're reacting. So you're automatically reacting. And then I don't know how much detail you want to go into this, but
Not too much.
there's a whole neuroscience behind authoritarian figures. They're
Yeah,
doing
yeah, I'm
exactly
sure. Well, we discussed that all of our presidents and prime ministers are all traumatized as kids, but that's not our discussion tonight. But
well,
anyway,
but
yeah,
it's the
you
history
want
of the
to, of
human experience. It goes right down to the family. I mean, what
course.
happens if people want control? They actually cause chaos.
Of course, but again, as you said, it's, people have come out of the fire and survived well. Like you were in a chaotic home. I was in an enormously chaotic home, and we're resilient and we're helping people learn that even though the home was chaotic and they lived in survival mode and they had to give up their authenticity to find any love, what Gabriel Maté says, you can heal. You don't have to have, like I always say, you can have enormous stress. I'm living under enormous stress right now in my country. I don't have physiological symptoms. I'm with my fear. I go to the gym with my loneliness. I go to sleep with enormous 1 foot out of the bed, enormous fear and anger that you don't even know. But I don't have physiological symptoms because I'm hanging out with my emotions. I'm connected to my unconscious mind. And I'm also aware. You taught me about awareness. I'm aware that I chose to be in this situation. So I'm not a victim of who I am, where I'm at, where I live, my partner. So part of it is this awareness and acceptance, which we chime into. And I love how you taught me, even more than acceptance, it's the awareness that will set one free. So on that note, I'm going to just answer two questions. Here's one. I'm going to bring it up on the screen. But do you see to your left or to your right, Doc? But I'll bring it up on the screen. Um, let me repeat it because I have the whole question here. Glad to see you. I'm Dr. Hanscom. I'm curious what you think about cranial cervical instability. Um, Here's the question. Loose ligaments in the neck holding up the head, allegedly connected to Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. The only solutions they are claiming to help are cervical traction and fusion or expensive prolotherapy. What do you think, Doc?
Well, this is probably one of my ultimate triggers. This cranial cervical instability is absolutely a story. It's made up. I'm sorry. Your ligaments behind your neck, I'm a neck surgeon. So the ligaments in your skull and your neck, as you know, are very, very strong. And people don't get cranial cervical instability. And even if there's an extra millimeter or two or movement, we're talking about structural problems versus neurological problems. So let's say for discussion's sake that instability caused pain. Once you calm down the nervous system, the pain's going to go away anyway. So that situation should never have surgery. I've never seen or heard of a good result from an operation because that instability is not the source of the pain. So even in the lumbar spine, I've seen people with severe spinal stenosis, which is like the narrow part of an hourglass, and really tight canals, really tight, bad leg pain on the surgical schedule. But as we went through a prehab process to calm down the nervous system, the pain disappeared completely and they never came
Unbelievable.
back. So my surgical practice ended up being less than 5% of my patients because the rehab became so consistently good, they canceled
Wow.
surgeries. And I never expected that.
Unbelievable.
So, so let's say for discussion's sake, the cranial cervical instability was a source of pain. What we always do is simply, for at least 12 weeks, maybe longer, start calming and rerouting the nervous system, and then you see what's left over. And the vast majority of the time, the pain simply resolves.
Unbelievable. And I'm not surprised one bit. And I hope the listener who has the question heard that and implements and applies this information that you are not broken and that you can recover. Here's another question that
Okay, can I say one thing really
yes,
quickly? Okay,
please,
so I've been
please.
through this lots of times. People say, "Well, I have this problem. Who are you? You don't know who I am. You don't really believe me." Here's the deal. I ask people, do not believe a word I'm saying. This is the key issue. The body heals with connecting to your healing capacity. That means connecting to what's inside of you. That actually means connecting to negativity instead of fighting it. So what's in your brain, whether you want to admit it or not, is skepticism. What do I know? He's promising this process. Nothing's worked before. Why should this work? That's the starting point. Connect with your skepticism. And just again, the focus is on skills, not the pain. So you're focused
Excellent.
on the skills, not the pain, because if you're trying to fix the pain, your attention's on the pain, and the healing occurs as you create circuits away from the pain. So please, if you're remotely considering surgery, please just do the work over 3 to 6 months and just watch what happens.
Can I ask? Because I think a lot of listeners, and I know I have a few clients right now who are just so struggling with focus. And because their symptoms are high, they're in threat physiology, they're activated. And I'm trying to teach them not only that you this is what I say, but I like to hear what you say. And I'm curious what you think of what I say. Look, and I learned this from Dr. Your golf partner, Dr. Schubiner, about the cellular network, that the brain chooses what's important. And if you're focusing on your breath or joy or your safety physiology, you won't be focused on your pain. And so this is one small way that we change our focus and build our, cellular network. But tell me how you would answer someone who's focused on their pain because it hurts. How do you get them to shift what I call from fifth gear to first gear and focus on something else? How do you do that?
Well, you can't.
Of
So
course.
here's the deal. People they want to shift. They want to make the shift now. So again, it's programming and reprogramming. So you can't just shift into a different gear. So it's repetition. So remember, if you think about your pain, it's a problem, right? What happens when you try not to think about your pain? It's worse. Try
Pink
not.
elephants, the pink Volkswagens.
Right. So if you think about the pain as a problem, you try not to think about the pain, it's even a bigger problem.
Okay.
There's a whole sequence of, we call it thought separation. That's your expressive writing comes into play where you simply write down the thoughts. I'm looking at my pain. I don't like my pain. I hate my pain. Just write it down, tear it up. So we call it thought separation is what we're doing. And then the key word is awareness. You become aware, okay, I'm thinking about my pain. Then you become aware I'm not thinking about my pain. And then the real healing occurs as you just go on about your day on your terms.
So,
So it's
but
the word.
there's a distraction. There's a distraction and a no? Like
No,
you're
the
okay.
key is you can't heal by distracting yourself because again, you're still fighting the pain. So in other words, with awareness, you realize I'm fighting the pain. I'm trying not to fight the pain. The healing occurs as you move forward with your day with connection from doing the dishes, washing the floor, playing with your kids, connecting with the moment you're in. Healing occurs 1 minute at a time. So right now I'm talking to you and this is quite enjoyable to put it mildly. So there's healing here. If I wash the floor, do the dishes, if I just connect to my sensations, connect to the fact with gratitude, I get a chance to do the dishes. and your situation with such chaos going on, just being grateful you're still alive even. And so it's one of those things where I'm not into positive thinking, but positive vision is really critical. So again, you heal with neuroplasticity. You're literally building new circuits in your brain away from the pain circuits.
Okay. But and again, can if I focus on my breath or I focus on something else, I won't experience the pain. Is that true?
For a few minutes, that's fine. I mean, that's the problem. See, people want to fix their pain, right? If you're trying to fix the pain, then you're tented on the pain. Now you can use what happens with breath work inadvertently is still the right thing to do. But the reason you might do it is differently. For instance, called coherence breathing. You breathe about 5 to 7 times a minute, equal in, equal out. Do that a few times a day. It directly stimulates the vagus nerve. So rubbing your forehead stimulates the fifth cranial nerve. Humming stimulates,
Humming.
right, seventh cranial nerve, auditory stuff, eighth cranial nerve. So these all stimulate the vagus nerve. So what you're happening when you do meditation, relaxation, the different things we talked about, is not from distracting. You're actually stimulating the vagus nerve, which is highly anti-inflammatory and very powerful.
But I'm taking my focus, like my spotlight, off my sensations and onto something else.
Right. So that's called active meditation. I do this all the time, 3 to 5 seconds. But again, you're fully engaged in the moment you're in. So with active meditation, it's 3 to 5 seconds. I used to do it all day long in surgery. So by repeatedly connecting to what's right in front of you, you do put your attention on something else. So instead of fighting unpleasant circuits, you simply place your attention on other ones. But it's just one tool. In other words, people will say, well, I'm going to do this and solve my pain. I'm going to do expressive writing and solve my pain. The people talk about PRT, pain reprocessing therapy, again, is just one tool. So you've heard me use the metaphor of a forest fire, right? So each person's individual. We have an infinite number of variables inside of each one of us. Everybody has different choices that they use to connect with it. But all you're trying to do is to induce safety physiology and decrease time and threat. That's it. Whatever way you can get there is fine. So again, I'm always careful to talk about the techniques very carefully because it is in the context of the entire big picture of what I call dynamic healing. Again, your stresses versus your coping skills. You learn to process stress differently. You increase your coping skills. You learn to regulate the physiology. Then the symptoms resolve. If you're trying to do these tools to get rid of the symptoms, that doesn't work.
Beautiful. No, that's right on track. And what I'm learning more, and I think what your new book is saying is that we can't heal from the brain. We have explain. I want to go to your book in a minute and explain this question, but I just want to bring up Marnie's question. I've been diagnosed with RA. I feel my pain is mind body, but I know my doctors want me to go on like meds, maybe even like biological meds. They feel like the RA will spread to other parts of the body. What do you think about that?
Well, one of the guys that I work with in my group is a rheumatologist, and he said, Hanscom, he said this 30 years ago. He goes, it's inflammation. I'm going, what are you talking about? It's the bone spurs. Anyway, he's been part of the team I put together on this whole healing process. So the answer is I'm not for or against anything. In other words, if you need medications to solve the symptoms, fine. But I would really encourage you to jump on my course. It's the docjourney.com and just program your brain over 3 to 6 months to reprogram and calm down your nervous system. There's not one solution. It's just that whole combination of things. And rheumatoid arthritis is one of those things that responds beautifully to these concepts. Same thing with colitis, Crohn's disease, multiple sclerosis, psoriatic arthritis. All these inflammatory disorders respond beautifully to these tools because you're lowering inflammation.
People that will go to doctors, because medical doctors have, a black and white few things they're going to do. And one of them is medicine. And for inflammation, they're going to go with the biologics. So I think it's more the doctor that this person is seeing and the decision she has to make. But it's not all or nothing. She could even do the biologics and do the brain work and need less biologics, or the biologics will work better.
Absolutely. But again, let me just review the dynamic healing model again for a second. You have your input and circumstances.
Please
You
do.
have your nervous system or the coping skills, and you have your physiology. But see, people are treating only the symptoms. It's an interaction between your stresses and your coping
Very
skill that creates a
good.
physiology. So if you want sustained relief, you got to learn how to regulate your body's chemistry. So it's a dynamic process. Again, teaching people the skills, again, the emphasis is on the skills to engender safety physiology. Like I said before, there's always threat physiology. You always have to be some degree on guard. But as you increase the ratio of safety to threat, the body takes care of itself. Not David Hanscom. It's not some process. It's not a self-help process. It's simply connecting to your own body's capacity to heal.
Beautiful. I love it. I mean,
Well, I mean, the people that
it,
heal, I hear this over and over again. The people that heal say, look, this is disturbingly simple. It's something we should have been taught in elementary school onwards. They're just self-regulating skills, and they're not very hard. You don't need a pain clinic. You don't need a psychiatrist. You don't need a psychologist. You don't need a doctor. And again, I'm all for treating symptoms. You have a migraine headache, take migraine medications. I used to keep my patients on narcotics until the pain resolved. Once the pain resolved, of course, they didn't need the narcotics. So I'm not against treating symptoms, but remember that's all you're doing.
very important. Very important. I do want to answer Susan's question, but I do want to talk about your book because you purposely, and you talked about repetitive, intrusive thoughts, which shows the power of our thoughts and the power of separating them on the paper and the journaling process, which I send your paper out to hundreds of people. I just did a lecture with the SERPA group, health professionals, and Georgie was there. It's talking about you and your papers. And so I sent out about the inflammation and your PDF about expressive writing. It's just very your knowledge and your resources for people that are free. I'm just spreading them all over. So just so you
Thank you.
know, I'm a little bit of a messenger for you.
Well, I
But
appreciate it.
interest. But what, dear?
Quick question. Did I send you the PDF on Calm Your Body, Heal Your Mind? Did you get
I
that?
before the book got published, you snuck it to me, but I snuck it to me, but not now the book's published.
No, it's not
But
public.
oh, it's not published
Not,
yet?
not till June.
Oh, okay. But what's fascinating is that you are saying the body, we need to heal the body first, and then the brain will heal. Like, can you explain that? Because the
Well, I'm reading some stuff on human consciousness by a guy named Antonio Damasio out of UCLA. I'm also reading Bruce Lipton's new book on evolution, and there is no question. There's zero separation between the mind and the body. Zero. It's I don't call it mind body anymore. It's just a unit. And what happens, single celled organisms, bacteria, they survive. They don't have a nervous system, but they're receptors that tell you whether you should go towards something or away from something. They actually communicate with each other and form colonies. Then they perform protective slimes. And then, mammals, of course, are very advanced, but it took billions of years for us to get here. So we have nervous systems. And then eventually their systems evolved to develop a central nervous system. And then human consciousness as we know it is only about 50 to 60,000 years old. So we have this huge survival machine that's existed for hundreds of millions of years. It does a very excellent job of keeping us alive. So this human consciousness thing came along as an appendage. So our ability to survive has very little to do with our minds. The problem is what our minds do is that what happens with human consciousness, we interpret our body's physiology. So if we feel safe and content, of course, nice, easy thoughts. If we're under stress, again, we have unpleasant thoughts. I call them repetitive, unpleasant thoughts, or repetitive, unwanted thoughts, and they're universal. Now, some people, not a big deal, but for a lot of people, maybe most, these repetitive thought patterns are very frustrating. They disturb your quality of life. Why don't we have repetitive positive thoughts? Well, going back to our conversation on adversity, we don't fight positive thoughts. And so when we fight the unpleasant thoughts or unwanted thoughts, that's what gives them the power. They're just thoughts. Why would they harm us? They're just thoughts, right?
yeah, the thoughts are energy.
Right. So exactly. So we just have thoughts. And so when we fight those, we now created that physiological link to thoughts. So then what happens is that we're in fight or flight, we're under stress for any reason, then our thoughts are going to reflect our stress physiology because our conscious brain is interpreting our body's chemistry. So it's the physiology first. So in threat physiology, you have unwanted racing thoughts. But in humans, you have a big problem is that the thoughts themselves become their own source of threat. So we have plenty of threats in life besides our thoughts. Then we have our thoughts that are their own source of threats. So what happens, we have a myriad of thoughts coming at us. For an animal in the wild, we have usually one opponent or predator at a time. We fight those off and we survive, or we don't survive. With humans, we have this massive number of thoughts coming in. It's called cognitive fusion. We actually become our thoughts. So thoughts, belief systems, concepts become as threatening as a tiger. So we have so many coming in all at once. We develop this bunker. I'm not trying to say this in a light way. I know your
Okay.
situation there. But we
Okay.
develop a bunker called mental rigidity, identity, or ego to defend ourselves against survival physiology. So what happens is that rigid thinking crosses every mental health diagnosis. Our identity, by the way, is a form of rigidity. Defending our identity is a form of mental rigidity.
Yeah.
I think it is one of the core sources for human chaos of just labeling groups of people as this versus that. It makes no sense, except that's the way our bodies are geared to survive. The problem is in chaos, and I'll say this, double down on this one, is that when you're in chaos, your thinking brain goes offline. So the creativity we need to actually solve the problem is gone. I have a little phrase called from reactive to creative. If you're reacting to things, you can't think clearly, but take the letter C out of the word reactive and put it at the beginning, you have the word creative.
Creative.
Right. So seeing first, i.e., awareness, is how you solve the problem. So the thing is, the problem is when you're angry, the blood supply drops down, you lose awareness. Awareness and anger cannot exist in the same room.
I think when people are talking about, they're using this word so freely, I'm disassociating. I feel disassociated. They're angry. They're in conflict. They're resisting.
Right.
What is disassociation?
They don't have, I'm sorry, say it again now.
Disassociation. People are using that word like clients. I'm feeling disassociated. I disassociate. What is
Well, because
happening?
their brain, honestly, their blood supply to the thinking brain isn't working. It's not dissociating. You can't think. You cannot think. You have no choice in that point. The only choice you have is to say, okay, I'm angry. My brain's offline. Again, this is a whole different topic on anger, which I'm happy again to talk about over time, but you're angry, your brain's offline. And so the first thing you have to do is become aware that your brain's offline. So we have a 5-3-2 strategy. The 5 words are no action and a reaction. When you're reacting, you are not thinking clearly because you can't. You cannot think clearly when you're in a reaction. The second 3 words, we go 5-3-2, 5 words, no action or reaction. The second one is flip the switch. So anger is so powerful, you can't do battle with it. I don't like the word forgiveness at all. There's too many things that are unforgivable. You don't have to forgive to put your brain back online. In fact, so you say flip the switch. Okay, I'm in a victim mode. I'm not going there. I'm just going a different direction. You may flip the switch 100 times a day. I do it at least 10. I've done it 3 times this morning already. So we're all victims of something. And so how long do you want to remain a victim? So I call it flipping the switch. You just, bam, go a different direction. And then the healing occurs with the final 2 words, move on. So as you move on your terms, in other words, connecting to the moment you're in with whatever tools you want to use, that's how your brain heals. It's not from fixing all the darkness, it's by turning on the light.
Yeah. Yeah. So simple. So simple. So here's Susan's question. I'll just read the whole thing. What about spinal stenosis and spondylolisthesis, advanced multi-level lumbar spondylosis, worse at L3, L5, worse at whatever, the details of L4, L5, L5 to 6, instability. So the question is, tingling in both feet. My symptoms are less when I sing.
So, I mean,
Dr.
here's the
Susan.
deal. It's all about pain threshold. So let's say, I'll just tell you what I would do if you're my patient. So I to get the diagnosis. I would ask you if you have back pain or mostly leg pain. If it's back pain, that's not a surgical problem. So none of those findings on your scan tell me that's the source of back pain. So back pain is, again, stuff we talked about, lack of sleep, stress, etc., changing the pain threshold. So when it comes to leg symptoms, do the leg symptoms match your pathology in the spine? So with spinal stenosis, that means that aches and hurts when you stand up and walk. Your legs might go numb. You might have a hard time sleeping. So we still put you through a 12-week prehab program, which is on my website. I want the back pain gone. I want the anxiety at least down a little bit. I want you sleeping. I want you physically active. And I had over 120 patients with the spines just like yours cancel surgery. They were on the schedule, for goodness sakes. They come in for the final visit and the pain was gone.
No wonder the hospital fired you.
Pardon, it wasn't good.
You weren't making any money.
No, yeah, both personally and whatever. I mean, but it's fine. I mean, it's nothing rewarding to see a patient not, go through not have to go through surgery and still heal. I mean, I have one woman who's a superstar in my group. She had 2 back surgeries. They failed. She was in severe chronic pain. I started to work with her, and over about 6 to 9 months, she got better, a lot better. So she now works with Bruce Lipton on that movie, Love Heals. Her name is
Dana.
Yeah, Dana.
Dana.
She's
Oh
the
my
one.
God.
So but I
Okay.
wrote a blog last week is that her father had neck surgery. She begged him not to do it. He died. So, you can't, surgery has risk to it. So if you do the surgery in the face of a prehab program, the results are way more consistent. I used to tease my fellows about when was the last time you saw a surgical failure in my clinic. So half the people cancel the surgery. If they had the surgery, just did wonderfully well. And what I didn't understand until the last 5 years is what I was doing is actually calming down the body's inflammatory process.
Nice.
So wounds heal, infection goes down, postoperative pain is minimal. And so it became an incredibly delightful phase of my practice, even though financially it was sort of a disaster.
It's okay. You and I are, what do you call it?
We could be victims,
We get paid in different ways.
right? No, I mean, honestly, somebody comes in and one of my friends pointed out really succinctly, I see 20, 25, sometimes 30 patients in a day in clinic and come out completely energized. And my friend just succinctly said that I just get energized by patient success.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's very rewarding to see people get better with or without surgery.
Yeah, and, but, again, most of my programs we're talking about, why people get stuck. And of course, Dr. Clark will say, well, there's just something still in their brain. There's something still going on that is keeping them in fight or flight. They're still in threat physiology. They got to figure out what's going on in their brain that's keeping them, in fight or flight.
Can I stop
And
you for a second?
yeah, so
I go
so
completely the opposite route.
so I'm asking you, and that answer is a good answer. I think it makes a lot of sense, and me and you can disagree
It's
and not have a war. So,
not good.
but there's a reason why people are stuck, and I'd like to know what you say to your groups. And just to the listeners, Doc Hanscom has a twice a week group therapy. It's amazing. I've chimed in that it's in my evening. And you can sign up for that in his DOC journey, which is profound. And I wish I had the time and energy to just, teach that. It's just so beautiful and so well written. And your post on Facebook are just phenomenal today about the paradox. I mean, you're right on, right on. But so go ahead. I'd like your opinion on why people are getting stuck.
So this is a big one because this is, I mean, there's thousands and thousands of self-help processes, right? But you're trying to fix the problem. So what I've learned to be many years to figure out this is that all you're trying to do is learn the tools is to actually calm down your nervous system. And people get stuck for an infinite number of reasons. So if you start focusing on the reasons why I'm stuck, your brain's going the wrong direction. So you heal by moving forward. And so on a given person, I don't know why they're stuck. They don't know either. That's why the senior editor of Psychology Today and I think the same thing about trauma therapy. So you create a trauma story that becomes an anchor. And so there's every second of your life is a potential trigger for today. Who knows which one it is? And so all you have to know, okay, I'm triggered. Again, no action or reaction. Number 2, flip the switch. Number 3, move forward. That's all you have to know. You don't have to know the reason why. In fact, you shouldn't even try. It doesn't matter. The past is done. Anyway, there's a
No,
long version of that.
yeah, I want to hear. So, for example, if we say to people, well, there's just something stuck in there. Your brain is just hijacked. It's the alarm can't go off. You're saying that's not the best explanation because it's not helping them. I want you to say that again. 'Cause I want you to say it again in different ways. So it's not helping them if we say, well, something's just got to go figure out because it means they're trying to figure it out, fight
Right.
it, focus on it. So
Hey,
you say
move
they
on.
would,
Keep moving forward. It's like playing football in our country where you have like 3 tacklers on your back. You just keep moving forward. Who cares who the tacklers are? You just keep moving forward. If you want to spend time analyzing the tacklers, you're never going to hit the goal line. Anyway, that's a bit of a different story about, see, again, the healing occurs with neuroplasticity, about putting your brain on where you want to go, not trying to fix what you don't want.
yeah, yeah,
And
okay,
the word is awareness, to separate yourself from the survival physiology. By the way, going back to negative thoughts, why taking your survival physiology personally is probably the essence of unpleasant, unwanted thoughts.
very good point. So here's another, and I think that we answered your question, but I'll have Dr. Hanscom just say it again because there's nothing new under the sun. It's about repetition, repetition, and moving forward. But here's the question. Let me bring that up again. Hold on. I gotta find the 1 second. Here you go. Thank you. Have TMS, CRPS, all limbs doing PRT. Developed a cyst, docs can't figure it out. Had MRI, perennial neuropathy, pain in low back, both sides down to feet, sciatica pain on right. Advice.
So you're the person I love to see. No, I'm serious. I mean, the more diffuse your pain, the more widespread it is, the higher the chance that you'll get better. But it's harder because you're in so much misery. It's hard to let go of the anger, which you actually can't intellectually do. So, again, I'm at a disadvantage because I'm not your doctor, but I would see you back probably every 2 weeks. We adjust medications. We find out what you can and can't do. We do physical therapy only if you can tolerate it. With the number one thing I would focus on would be sleep. Number one, you got to sleep. Not sleeping is a problem. I used to use medications quite aggressively to get people to sleep. And over 6 to 12 weeks, as people get better, they would start to sleep and they wouldn't need the meds. If you're on narcotics, I would keep you on narcotics, slowly wean them off as you get better. And so it's not a simple answer to that, but the answer is totally solvable. I do have a woman on my website, by the way, Bonnie Lester. She's on one of my,
Yeah, I interviewed her.
yeah, she had total body CRPS for
Yeah,
30 years and she's
yeah.
fine. I lunch with her a few weeks ago and she's wonderful. She has no pain and she's been pain-free since 2010, but she has her own version of the process. She calls it, I think, self-directed neuroplasticity. But again, we're all saying the same thing with our own version of language, but her story convinced me you can heal from anything.
Yeah. Well, CRPS is absolutely 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Um, a few more quick questions. I'll take a few more minutes. Yeah, yeah. So, um, does everyone who has chronic pain issues have some sort of PTSD? If no, then how does the approach differ for someone with PTSD and its complications like flashbacks?
well, a couple of things. I think everybody has PTSD. I mean, all of us have trauma. All of us have things we don't like in our lives. So at what threshold does it become PTSD? The answer is there are some criteria diagnostically. I do not like psychological diagnosis. So the bottom line is PTSD means something today reminded you of something in the past that was negative. And again, the trauma therapist had to create trauma stories. And so again, the skill set's about regulating your nervous system. And it's what I call dynamic healing because it goes back and forth, back and forth. I also people think I'm joking, but I'm not. I call the doctor the journey to nowhere because where are we going? What are you escaping from? So all you have to do is today, so you're using your tools to connect to the moment you're in. As you keep connecting to moment to moment to moment, you sort of crowd out the reactions. So anytime you're anxious or frustrated, that's some form of PTSD. So
Good point.
the long answer is saying it doesn't change anything.
Very good answer. Last questions. Do you believe objective small fiber nerve loss heals much better under a regulated nervous system?
Yeah, I'm not sure the answer to that. So I had extreme burning in my feet for over 15 years. It's gone. They would have diagnosed that as small fiber neuropathy. And we even think with diabetic peripheral neuropathy that a large part has to do with chronic threat physiology because, again, your nerve conduction's off. Um, and so we're not 100% sure what causes the actual symptoms of peripheral neuropathy. So the answer is I don't think anybody knows. I don't know for sure. The question is, can it heal? The answer is maybe. And again, all I can do is so the approach I'm taking, look, let's get really good at the tools. Many symptoms resolve, some don't. Occasionally, the ones that don't do require surgery, which is fine. But if you calm down the entire nervous system, people just do better with or without surgery.
Well, Dana in Love Heals had 2 failed spinal surgeries. She has pain, but her relationship to pain completely changed. So
Right.
I would say to this person, your relationship with your pain, even if it's permanent, will completely change and it becomes you live a vital life. You may have sensations, but you can dial them down. So talk a little about that because even permanent, even, even even the other the guys from, the ATNS, they'll say all the things that are not in the list of neuroplastic symptoms, you still can use this work and you still can recover and you still can have much less symptoms because your relationship with the sensation changes and that puts the brain in safety physiology. Would you say
Let
that?
let me back up for a second. So
Okay.
Dana, I talked to Dana last week. She has no pain, and
Amazing.
when
Amazing.
she got done
It's
with but see, here's the problem I deal with people that have had prior failed surgeries. So repeatedly dashing hopes induces depression. So when people have a surgery, they put a lot of money and time into it, especially with the fusion, and then it fails, they're legitimately angry with their surgeon. And that's an anger that's hard to let go. And Dana, again, like all my other surgical patients that failed surgery, had the same problem. So she got about 80% better, was back actually making film and doing things. I'm going, Dana, your pain will disappear. But look at Bonnie Lester. Her entire body's on fire. That pain disappeared.
Tom Sullivan.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
27 symptoms, almost he tried to commit suicide.
Yeah. I mean, when with neuroplasticity, you literally can develop a completely new brain.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say to even small neuropathy, small fibroneuropathy, you can recover and
Right.
live without pain.
Correct. And I don't know, see, I can't tell exactly what that means. I mean, who knows what the EMGs and stuff showed, but my situation, I mean, I had really bad burning feet for 15 years. That's a long time. And I never thought it'd be gone. It was miserable. Some nights I felt like my feet were in a toaster oven. I did not know
Wow.
about the physiology. I didn't know anything about this, but both
Wow.
feet were burning on fire. It's gone.
Unbelievable. Dr. David Hanscom, virtual hug across the seas, across the oceans, from my heart and home to yours. I just love our time together. And each time we meet, I just understand you more and more and get you. And just this, I think this new book sounds phenomenal. And just that you brought it down to the playing field about the thoughts, it's going to help so many people. So we're going to put up the book so people can start to order it. It's out in June.
Calm your body, heal your mind.
Fill your mind. So I am so proud and so blessed to have you here. And we'll meet again with Agnes, and we'll meet again. We'll like every 6, 7 weeks, I start to say, it's time for coffee with Dr. David Hanscom.
Yeah, no,
So,
I love these sessions. They're really wonderful. And so
yeah,
again,
thank you so much. Have a blessed day.
okay.
Thank you
Thank
so
you. All
much.
right.
Good
Thank
night.
you very
God
much.
bless. Okay, 1 second.